welcome to this special conversation. Mirae Asset India Mutual Fund and CNBC TV 18 present Wizards of Finance. This is, of course, a series of webinars, conversations that we've been getting to you to, of course, increase awareness about investments to help you make the right choice, the smart choice when it comes to your money. Now, the topic of discussion today is a very interesting and a very important one. We today are going to talk about investing in overseas markets and why, as an asset class, this sort of diversification perhaps is really important for your portfolios, the avenues with which you can do it, which are the foreign markets one can tap, what are the routes, what are the regulations when it comes to tax and the amount itself that can be invested. All of that is going to be covered over the next several minutes. Well, let me quickly introduce our guests on the show. I have with me Vaibhav Shah, who's Head of Products and Marketing at Mirae Asset Mutual Fund. And of course, we also have with us Gurmeet Chadha of Complete Circle Investments. Gentlemen, thanks very much for being with us. This is a very interesting subject at hand that we have. And Gurmeet, I'm going to open up first with you, because I think the year 2020 was that learning curve where a lot of Indians realized that there's so much money being made in these fancy US technology stocks. And I think that became a trigger which started a lot of conversations about, oh, I'm not investing in US equities. And it became pretty fashionable to at least talk about it. So your opening remarks.
Hi, Surbi. Pleasure to be on this platform. I think global investing is catching up. And you rightly mentioned, I think 2020 probably could prove to be an inflection point. Surbi, mind you, our market cap in India is $2.5 trillion, here and there. And the global market cap is $100 trillion. So you're actually talking of a market which is 40 times the size, which you can't afford to ignore in the long run. So yes, it's important to have global investing as part of your portfolio. Could be 10 to 15%, could vary from individual to individual. And we have heard about it gives you currency diversification. We have seen, for example, rupee depreciate in last 35 years almost 5.8% against the dollar. I'm not a currency expert, not giving a currency view, but just stating facts. Gives you geography diversification. In fact, we did a study that if you take the top 6 markets globally, which is, let's say, US, UK, EU, Hong Kong, Korea, the developed markets, none of the markets have been in top slot consecutively for, let's say, 2 years. So various countries go through different economic cycles. So it's important part. It should be important part of the portfolio, and we can discuss various ways and means of whether we should take ETFs, stocks, FOFs to take this forward.
Vaibhav, actually, let me get your first view on the reason that one needs to look at a global market. I mean, some will argue saying that your country best and the companies here best, so perhaps just invest here. Why does one need to look beyond Indian borders?
No, thanks, Surbi, and it's a pleasure interacting with you. I think so, like Gurmeet rightly pointed out, that India is a very small pie when we see the overall way the markets are shaping. So India is actually 3% of the world's GDP and actually 3% of the world's market cap. So it really tells you that 97% of the world is an opportunity that Indian investors are currently missing. And also what clearly also highlights is, if you see the way the global stock markets are moving, and you pointed out rightly in your opening remarks that a lot of fancy things are happening in the US technology companies. So we are seeing emerging trends in electric vehicles, automation. We are seeing all those trends happening with artificial intelligence. And if you were to see the number of listed companies in India in this space, you don't see any listed companies in this space. Now, if an investor wants to tap the emerging trends which are happening globally and which will come to India, I think so you have to look at global diversification and increasing it and making it a very important part of your portfolio. And like Gurmeet mentioned, rightly pointed out, that it depends on investors, could be 5%, could be 10%, 15%, based on how the investors are and their risk profile. But clearly global investing is something that cannot be missed out any investor's portfolio.
Okay, fair enough. Gentlemen, let me ask you the first basic question then. In terms of risk profile, generally, if you're going to invest in an international market, is the risk higher? Is that something that one has to bear in mind as a starting point? Vaibhav?
So it should be excellent point you mentioned. So I wanted to highlight one thing in this, and which is also in content with what we discussed earlier. Uh, that if you see that the correlation between say US markets and the Indian markets is significantly low. So from say 2008 till 2020, and we've seen 12 calendar years. So US market has outperformed India 8 times during that period. And there are out of that 8 times, 5 times that the US markets has outperformed India by more than 10%. And India has actually outperformed US market by more than 10% 3 times during this 12-year period. What it shows is that the correlation between both US and Indian markets is also low. So both have the
As you
underlying
could
activities, but the correlation between asset classes is low. So ideally, an investor has to have an aggressive mindset while he's making investments in global investments. But I would say even moderate risk profile customers can look at to having some part of allocation even in global stocks or global markets, because the correlation that those markets have with Indian markets is lower, and that can be a good way for investors to diversify their risk, reduce their overall portfolio risk, and improve their risk adjusted performance.
Let's talk about the regulatory aspects of it to get that clear. And Gurmeet, here, I mean, there is the LRS scheme where a certain level of sort of money can be remitted outside the country. So, what is the overall framework under which you invest? How much money can go out? Is there a cap on which geography, regions, and then, of course, taxability?
So very good point, Shubhi. So there are essentially two routes to invest. Broadly, I'm saying obviously there are sub routes within them. One is LRS, where you can remit 250,000 USD per PAN. So in a family, let's say there are 2-3 earning members, you can. So if you're planning to acquire a significant overseas asset, let's say a property or a business, or a large exposure, I think the LRS route can be available. But this is for largely family offices and ultra HNIs. Also, the compliance has to be kept in mind. This has to be reported under Section FA of the ITR, and various LRS requirements. Plus, taxation could be tricky. So various countries, for example, you may not have a double taxation avoidance agreement. So you'll have to account for that. For simplicity and convenience sake, the ETFs and the FOFs to me make more sense. They offer you convenience. They are treated like domestic mutual fund. It's a debt taxation. So less than 3 years, the gains are added to your income, and more than 3 years, it is 20% with indexation. So if you're slightly long term, the taxation is not. It won't hurt you. It's like debt. It's like a debt taxation. Also operationally very, very convenient. You can set up an SIP, you can do a staggered investing, and it doesn't need separate reporting under LRS. So for me, somebody who wants to do passive long term boring investing, I think the ETFs and FOFs to me make more sense.
Just to clarify, even if you go via the mutual fund route, Gurmeet, is there an annual cap? I mean, how much money can you invest in a fund of fund or any other vehicle that's eventually investing in US stocks, or let's say European stocks?
Shubhi, there is no individual cap, but when RBI, when SEBI gives approval to ETFs and FOF, and Vaibhav can clarify, there is a cap at an industry level, which I think is about $7 billion, and each fund being, I think, a few $100 million. I'm not too sure on the exact number, but that's too big enough a limit considering what the amount is. So it's not really at an investor level there is any cap in terms of going for an FOF.
Oh, okay, great. So Vaibhav, comment on this, on as an investor, if there is any threshold, any cap or limits that I need to be aware of, how much money can I invest? And can I simply invest it in Indian currency? And then what happens to the currency risk as well?
Sure. So Subhi, thanks for highlighting some of the very important points that investors need to know. So for mutual fund perspective, there is no cap that that the investors need to know on the amount that they can invest. So investors can invest without any cap in these products. The overall limit is there for the mutual fund industry and individual fund houses on how much they can invest in overseas market. But there is no regulation that individual investors need to monitor.
Sure.
Second, on your point, Surbi, is I want to highlight a very important thing. Say, let me give you an example. All of us do shopping through Amazon, and if I actually wanted to buy an Amazon share, one share would cost me roughly around 2.5 lakh rupees. So,
Okay.
for an individual investor, it is absolutely not easy to buy, a portfolio of US securities. In addition to what Gurmeet pointed out, which is operational issues, taxation issues, and a lot of things that investors need to follow, ticket size for an investor to also do this is tough. And that's where you can start even with a small SIP of 1,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees with a mutual fund. So mutual fund becomes the most convenient vehicle through which investors can get access to uh, global investing. And I wanted to just add one thing to what Gurmeet had mentioned. A lot of people say that taxation for overseas is debt. So whether it is attractive. Now we ideally say that investing in equities has to have a 3-year time frame. And in India now the long-term tax on equity is 10%. Now, if you consider a 3-year time frame of international investing as well, and on a 20% tax bracket, you will have 3-year or maybe 4-year indexation benefits that you can get, and that means that your tax liability can actually be lower than what you will pay for investing in India. So the debt taxation, because of indexation benefit, can actually work in favor of Indian investors.
Okay.
And Surbi, a lot of people avoid this, but from financial crisis 2008, US market has given compounded 25% return. And with
Sure.
that, an addition of 3 to 5% currency return, or 2 to 3% currency return that you can potentially get, and the
Yeah.
indexation not working and working in your favor. So it's a good thing for
Vaibhav,
it.
yeah, Vaibhav, a lot of very important points here. So let me just, dissect them one by one for our viewers. First, let's talk about the currency. If there is currency risk and sort of how it plays out, and let's simplify it absolutely. So for every 100 rupees that an Indian investor is putting in an Indian mutual fund that will eventually invest in a global market, I will invest in rupees, right? And then that is the investment that's going to be onward invested in the home currency of that particular country. So, would it be fair to say that there will be an element of currency risk? I mean, in the years the dollar is appreciating, you have added returns, but there could be years when that home currency, the dollar or the euro, it declines. So, one should bear that in mind as well.
So absolutely,
Absolutely,
Surbi, and
Surbi.
that's a most relevant question that you've asked. So
Hmm.
an Indian investor gives his money in INR. The fund actually will invest in dollars or euro based on which type of theme he is investing in. Let's take dollar for simplicity and example purpose. So suppose he's investing, the fund invests in dollar, then you will get the performance of the difference between INR and dollar when you actually try and redeem. Now, one
Hmm.
key reason that we've seen in the past that the rupee has depreciated is, economics will tell you that the difference between the currency of two countries will be to the extent of inflation. Now, in the past, inflation differential between India and the US have been somewhere to the region of 3 to 5%. And we take any period, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, you would see that the currency would naturally depreciate by 3 to 5%, considering the inflation difference between these two countries. There
Hmm.
may be periods when the INR will do better than the
Hmm.
US, and that's a factor that investors need to consider. But considering how both the economies are and the lower inflation in the US, though inflation has been lower in India, but still the difference is more than 2%, you would ideally expect the INR to depreciate, even
Hmm.
if you see from a long-term perspective, even now.
Okay, gentlemen, now that we've understood the process and the regulations involved with investing overseas, let's come down to the vehicle. Now, for retail investors, as both our panelists agree, that mutual funds are perhaps the best and simplest, easiest to understand route to select. So now, Weber, tell us, I'm guessing that you have funds on both sides, active and passive. So, what does the industry really offer, and what's out there for the investor to consider? And then we'll get to passives and the simplicity that they bring in just a moment as well.
Sure. So, Surbhi, we have in the entire industry few active funds, and we have fund of funds which actually provide exposure to different markets. Uh, I want to, here highlight one key thing is that, and why, we believe passive is the way that the trends are happening in developed markets. And that trend, if you want to capture when you invest in global markets, you have to use the passive vehicle. Let me try and give you a pointer here. We have got this PIVA report which showcases how active and passive funds are doing. When we
Hmm.
see over the US markets for the
Hmm.
last 11 years, passive or the index has outperformed actives for the last 11 years consecutively. In fact, 70% of the active funds have not been able to beat a large index like the S&P 500. So
Wow.
the numbers when it comes to global investing is showing you a contrast that it's becoming difficult for the active guys because of the information being very transparent, very quick, and the way indices are constructed for the active guys to beat. And hence in the entire mutual fund industry you have got active funds, you've got fund of funds and ETFs. I think so the trend will happen where you don't want the fund manager bias, because we are seeing that the US fund manager sitting in the US is finding it difficult to actually beat the index. To expect an Indian asset manager to be able to have expertise in US market to beat the index is going to be complex. So the better way would be to go through the passive route and just try and mimic a good index which can give you different participation on the entire market.
Okay, that's a very interesting point, backed by some very interesting stats as well. That's PIVA scorecard. Gurmeet, come in on this because we've been hearing this constant debate, right? That the alpha has been diminishing, especially in global markets. It's all about ETFs these days anyway. So is this really sort of a play in which you get onto like momentum investing and you're just going to play one market and one index of choice? What is your view on passives as we're looking at international markets?
So, Sulbi, I agree passive is catching up. In fact, there is a study in US that 60% of the mutual fund assets would move into indexing by 2025. Now, that's a huge number. So I think we're seeing that trend. I think even, on a 5-year basis, that number is even higher. Almost 84% funds have not been able to beat the S&P 500. So I think it makes sense to go through, a passive route because these days index itself is turning, very actively. Look at Nifty here, for example. It has a 25% churn rate. So we are in a disruptive world, and we are seeing constant churn in various indices. So as I said, best to keep it simple. And I, on this passive active debate, I don't think so. This is one against the other. It's about finding the right combination, right? If you are lazy, long term, boring investor, I think higher passive makes more sense. If you are active, have a technology background, and some insights into what you want to really. So it's risk is all about knowing, what to do, and if you know what
Yeah.
you're investing in, right? So a good. So let's say, for example, I'm somebody with a tech background. I want to have some exposure to gaming, or I want to have some exposure to automation or hyperscalers. I might add a small element of active to it. But for broadly, if I were to define it for all retail investors, largely a higher exposure to passive makes more sense over long term.
And lots of important data points as well that investors can keep in mind. So let's sort of wrap it up with some final thoughts. Gurmeet, your total overall advice on the subject of investing overseas?
Go for it. Have about 10 to 15% to global investing. Participate in disruptions and themes which are either not represented or underrepresented in India. As the point I made, make a core portfolio and a satellite portfolio. Core could be your broader index. Satellite could be a tech, or depending on your view, could be international infrastructure, could be the FANG, could be anything. Go systematically. Go for convenience more over few differences, basis points here and there, and think long term. This is an essential component of the overall portfolio. Don't just look at returns. Look at low correlation and risk adjusted returns.
Okay, that's well said. Vaibhav, any final thoughts from you?
No, I think Gurmeet has summed it up excellently. Just wanted to highlight the key point that invest for the long term, I think so that is very, very essential when you do global investing. And just don't chase returns, because if some markets have given higher returns, doesn't make sense that you need to you know mimic them, or make it immediately part of your portfolio. Keep your asset allocation in check, 10 to 15%. Invest systematically, like Gurmeet mentioned. And I think so the overall investment experience will be much better for investors.
Okay, well, that's some great advice and actually a lot of food for thought as well on diversification, why global markets need to find a place in our portfolios. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking out the time and enlightening us on this subject. That's it on this webinar, on this conversation. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risk. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.